Welcome to the Virginia Civics and Economics Lecture Series. At the end of each slide, there will be a 5-second delay. Use this time to complete your notes. When you are done, push play and move on to the next slide. This presentation will begin in 5 seconds. Welcome to Virginia Civics and Economics Lecture 5.4 on Circular Flow Economics, and let's talk about flow. Not that flow. I'm talking about flow. You know, like to go with the flow, or the way blood flows through the heart, or a pan flute flow chart. Let's look at that flow chart. Do you need one? No. Don't buy a pan flute. Do you need one? Yes. No, you don't. No pan flute. Well, what about money? How does money flow? And how does the flow of money impact our daily lives? Well, that's what we're going to look at today. So with that said, let's go to the next slide. An economist, or a person who studies the economy, does a job that is very much like that of a plumber or an electrician. Like a plumber who watches how water flows through a system of pipes, or an electrician who watches how electricity flows through a system of wires, an economist watches how money flows through an economic system. So let's look at one of those economic systems and start with basic economic flow, or circular flow. You need to understand this first before we can actually look at the system. Individuals and businesses use savings and investments to provide financial capital, or money, that can be borrowed for business expansion and increased consumption. In other words, money makes the world go round. Without money, you do not have an economic system. And without money going from one place to another in that system, the system doesn't work. So with that said, in a basic economic flow, capital flows evenly between individuals and businesses. What does this look like? Let's look at a basic circular flow chart. Individuals own the resources used in production, sell the resources, and use the income to produce products. We call that income. So we have individuals. They're going to use their income, that's their money, and they're going to use it to buy goods and get services from businesses. So the money's gone from individuals to businesses. Then, businesses buy resources, make products to be sold to other businesses, individuals, and the government, and use profits to buy more resources. We call that expenditures. So businesses then give their money, the expenditures, back to the individuals to pay for things like salaries, to buy materials to make more goods, and the money goes back from the businesses to the individuals. This is a model of closed system economic circular flow, and it's pretty straightforward. So what happens next? Go to the next slide. Plumbers and electricians make a lot of money because without plumbers and electricians, the water doesn't flow to or from a certain place, and the electricity doesn't get to the right socket. So how do economists make money when studying the economic circular flow system? Well, it works like this. Capital leaks from a closed system via the financial sector, government, and trade. As such, total capital should be accounted for, including all leaks where the money's going out of the system and injections where money's coming back in to maintain a healthy economic flow. In other words, we need to find and account for all of the leaks in the system, and that's what economists do. They make sure that we have a healthy economy by figuring out where all of the money is disappearing from and coming back into our closed circular flow system. And the first place that we have a leak is in the financial sector, or banks. They receive excess income from individuals, that's called savings, and they inject that income back into the system via businesses. Those are investments or loans. Here's our basic circular flow with individuals giving their income to businesses and the businesses giving their expenditures back to individuals. And here's our savings leak one. Here's the savings from the individuals. Those go into the banks, so that's excess income of individuals going into the banks, and then the banks are using that excess income as investment. They're loaning it back out to businesses so that businesses can grow and expand. Go to the next slide. Anybody could possibly plug a simple leak, but an economist is asked to plug multiple leaks, including leaks that we're not going to talk about in this lecture. So let's look at the other two major leaks that we find in an economic system. And leak two has to deal with taxation. The government uses tax revenue from individuals and businesses to provide public goods and services. You learned about that when you studied civics. Here's the economic impact. We have our basic circular flow with our savings, which is leak one. Now we have to talk about taxation, leak two. Individuals pay taxes to the government. That's just like excess income to the banks. Instead, you learned that individuals have a civic duty to pay those taxes to the government. And the government is then going to spend that money, and as it spends that money, it gets back into the basic circular flow, usually through businesses or large expenditures for public works. So, basic circular flow, savings are leak one, taxation is leak number two. Go to the next slide. The third leak has to do with foreign trade, and for an economist, this is the hardest leak to plug. Foreign trade injects goods and services into the economy that are bought by consumers. We call those imports, and sends goods and services out of the country to be bought abroad. We call those exports. So here's our basic circular flow. Here's our savings, leak one. Here's taxation, that's leak two. And here's trade, that's leak three. Here's how it works. Individuals send our money out of the country by buying imports. That's goods being bought by individuals and money being sent out into international trade. The only way to seal the leak is if the money in international trade goes back into exports. So the money goes back to businesses in our country because our country is sending goods into the international community. Here's the problem. Leak one and leak two, they still happen in the United States of America. Leak three happens when we send our own money completely outside of our system. The goal here is to eliminate trade imbalances and keep the system healthy. In other words, we want to make sure that for every dollar that we send out of our country, a dollar's coming back in from international trade. If that doesn't happen, it leads to an unhealthy economy. That's it for this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in class.